Hi guys, today we're going to speak about the most important number in the world, and that is Libor, the London Interbank Offering Rate. It is going to be now, it basically underpins the entire mortgage market, the entire foreign exchange market, all loans, credit, derivatives. The thing is, it is going to basically be extinct by the end of 2021 and be replaced by SOFR, which is the securitized overnight funding rate. But let's go into it, why it's so important, Libor. So Libor, looking at the main markets in the world, we've got gold. The entire gold stock of the world is only $10.9 trillion. We've got all global stock markets together is about $90 trillion. All global debt, $253 trillion. But derivatives is $1 quadrillion, right? It dwarfs all other markets put together. Now, derivatives are swaps, options, puts, calls, mortgage-backed securities, which caused 2008 financial crisis. And the reason why derivatives is so important is that derivatives doesn't operate mainly in the banking system. It actually operates in the shadow bank system. So people think, who controls the dollar? Well, it's the Fed. The Fed, they decide, how much the dollar goes up. They print whatever they want. Well, that's not actually true. The reality is the shadow bank system, which uses euro dollars, actually creates most of the dollars in the world. And they can do it when you ever create a loan. That's how money is created nowadays. It's not actually printed. Printing is only about 2% of all money in circulation. And most money in circulation is actually banks creating loans. So whenever a bank in China, for instance, creates a loan in US dollars, they are creating US dollars. And that is what creates a shadow banking system. That's what creates the derivatives market. Now, why is this important? So here we have the Libor versus Treasury bill graph from 1986, which is when the first ever Libor transaction, official Libor transaction actually came about until 2016. So what we saw here is we had Black Monday in 1987, where it spiked because banks didn't want to lend each other, right? So that's the difference between Libor and Treasury bills. Treasury bills will be constant, but Libor will spike because they'll go, oh, I'm scared you're not going to pay me back, right? That's how derivatives work. It's an interbank transaction. I'm scared that I'm not going to get paid back, so therefore I'm going to charge a higher interest. So it spiked in 1987, brought back down. We have the mini spike there for the dot-com bubble, but the real killer for Libor was obviously the financial crisis when the euro-dollar market basically went bust. And what that means is it was out of the Fed's hands. The euro-dollar market, as we just explained, is offshore, out of America, dollars being created. And what happened there is because of Lehman Brothers and all this, so those banks outside of America, didn't want to lend to each other and didn't want to lend dollars. And therefore there was a huge demand for dollars. And what had to happen is the Fed had to come in and start pumping and creating dollars. And that was the first QE. Remember, QE was only meant to be a one-time offering. Then we had QE2, QE3, QE4. We are currently in QE infinity. Let's keep that in mind. So we had the Libor market go up. Then they found Libor was being rigged. Everyone knew that even from the start it was being rigged. But let me explain to you the difference between why Libor was rigged and not. So Libor works like this. So the banks, basically, it's a rate where the banks give their opinion of what the interest rate should be. Now, obviously, if I want to rig it, let's say I'm Credit Suisse. So I'm going to say, well, you know what, I'm going to rig it and say, instead of saying 6%, I'm going to say it's 5.9%, right? And all the banks kind of get together and say 5.9. They cannot get together and say it's 2%, right? That's insane, because obviously the regulators looking at that when they comprise that amount will go, everyone else is saying 6%, you're saying 2%, that's a lie, right? So they cannot get that dodgy. They can only get in marginal terms, and obviously it causes billions of dollars of profits for these people that rig it, but still, in context, it's very small. Now let's compare that to what it's going to replace it, and it's being replaced at the moment, and that's SOFR. Now SOFR doesn't come from banks. SOFR comes from one place and one place only, the Fed. The Fed collates data, it then manipulates data, completely admitted, you can go and check what they say. It emits data. We actually have had instances where they had a feed problem and so therefore couldn't get results from banks and therefore just said what it should be because they didn't want that dodgy feed spiking the market. But look at what happened with SOFR in the 17th of September. So here we have 2018 to 2020. And obviously this is Libor, much higher. Obviously it's higher because it's unsecured debt. SOFR is much lower because it's using secured amount of money. Repo, it's the repo market, right? The repo market uses treasury bills as collateral. So it's always going to be a lower rate. September happened and it spiked because the banks were like scared, I don't trust you can actually pay me. I'm not going to lend you any money. So therefore it goes up. The Fed came in $1 trillion treasury blitz to the market. Boom. And then we've seen the rate go all the way down, and actually now it's pretty much down to zero because they're just pumping the whole repo market with liquidity. Now, why would they do that? So let's go over here. Over here we see that SOFR is actually the repo market. That's all it measures. All it does, if you see there in lockstep with the repo market, how much banks want to lend and borrow from each other. Now, repo market is basically treasuries, right? So I need dollars. I'll give collateral treasuries to the other bank, and the bank gives me money. And then I'll obviously pay them back for lending me that money, a little bit of interest, right? That's a basic thing. The problem is when you have QE, and we've currently had $3 trillion of QE printed due to the COVID virus. So because of that, it sucks money out. Because what is QE? QE is we will give you freshly printed money, but you give us treasuries, and it sucks treasuries out of the system. When you suck treasuries out of the system, what are you doing? SOFR, which tracks the repo market, right? The repo market now no longer has any juice in the system. There's no longer any oil in the system. Treasuries are quite rare. So therefore, they're going to say, we're going to charge more now for these treasuries. And that means SOFR would go up. If that were to happen, the interest rates would go up, like we saw over here. And if the interest rates go up, the entire derivatives market, which we've just said is $1 quadrillion, would completely crash. They can't even deal with a 0.1% increase in interest rate, let alone 10% or something like that. So it would completely crash. So what do they need? They need lots of treasuries then. They need lots of treasuries. How do you get it? They need to increase government debt. That produces more treasuries. And that's why we had Jay Powell currently begging Congress to have another stimulus package. Imagine, the Fed is begging the government to please borrow trillions of dollars of debt and just throw it out to the American people in order to create treasuries. That is in order to soften the repo market. That is in order to reduce the SOFR. That is in order to reduce their interest rates, which they need low interest rates for the whole world to survive, because the world would crash if interest rates were anywhere near normal. And that is the place we are now. We need governments to have high debts. We need a lot of treasuries in the market, and we're using we're going to use a completely Fed manipulated, fraudulent benchmark from going forward from the end of 2021 compared to Libor, which was rigged. But again, as I said, you need collusion of so many banks to do it. Really can't do that much damage compared to SOFR, which is the Fed rigging it from, look, 2%. They saw a problem, look where it is now. Zero. They managed to get it from virtually no change to nothing in a matter of time. And imagine, it's not fully, it hasn't actually fully been embedded yet in the system. By the end of 2021, there is no Libor. You only have SOFR. So welcome everyone. Understand that we're now going to be ruled by this new SOFR number, which is a completely Fed manipulated time bomb. But remember, the Fed can manipulate all it wants. But these boys rule the show. This shadow bank rules the show. And if they want, and if they feel that something's going on, they can do this at any time they want. And it's way outside the Fed's control, because they only have 25% of the market. And that's when you're going to have a huge catastrophe. Thank you very much.